Section 8.6, factoring ax squared plus bx plus c when a is not equal to 1. If you think back to 8.5, we had trinomials such as the one you see for problem number 1. A common question was what would happen if there was a number in front of that x squared value. Now, what will happen is we will do a method called the AC method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my a value, which is 2, and my c value, which is 6, and multiply them together. I get 12. Now, as soon as I know my answer for the AC is 12, I need to think of two numbers that multiply to give me 12 and combine to give me 13. So this method kind of combines what we did in 8.5, and as you're going to see in a second, it combines that with something we did in 8.8, factoring with grouping. Getting back to this problem, I need to find two numbers that multiply to give me 12 and combine to give me 13. Obviously that will be 12 and 1. Positive 12, positive 1. So what will happen is I will break up this 13 as a 12x and a 1x. Now, as most of us know, we do not need to write 1 in front of that x. However, I did it there to show you that it came from the work in the red on the right. Now, I need to rewrite what I already had, so that's 2x plus that, plus 6. Now, this should look very familiar, and it should look like factoring by grouping, what we just did last night. So if I were to group my first two terms together, 2x squared plus 12x, I need to decide what do those two terms have in common. Well, their greatest common factor is going to be 2x. Now, what remains is going to be an x plus 6. With that done, I look at my next group, the 1x plus 6. A lot of us like to say they have nothing in common, but we still need to remember they have a 1 in common. And if I factor out a 1, an x plus 6 remains. Now, I need to write the x plus 6 once, and the 2x plus 1 down as well. My final answer for this problem is circled in the black below. For the second problem, I'm going to go through a step of things that I look for when factoring. The first thing I do is I look at all the terms I have, and I determine, is there anything these terms have in common? In this case, 5x squared plus 19 minus 4. There is not one factor that all three of these terms have in common. After that, I recognize that I have three terms, a trinomial, and my a value is not equal to 1. What that means is I'm going to go ahead and follow through doing the a times c method. So I need to take 5 times negative 4. Careful with the 4 there, it's negative. That gives me negative 20. Now once again, I need to think of two numbers that multiply to give me negative 20, but will combine to give me this middle term of positive 19, and that should be an x. Those two numbers are going to be 20 and negative 1. I split up my middle term to read 20x minus 1x. Just as before, once I have my middle term split up, I need to rewrite the rest of the problem. So that's 5x squared plus 20x minus 1x minus 4. Now, what we've created is 4 terms factoring, and with 4 terms factoring, I need to do factoring by grouping. So I group my first two terms together, and they have a 5x in common. What remains is going to be an x plus 4. My next two terms, negative 1x minus 4, they have a negative 1 in common. Now, one main thing that I want us to make sure we're always thinking about is if this term is negative, if that term is negative, what I just highlighted in blue, then we need to pull out a negative value. So in this case, we pull out a negative 1, and we have an x plus 4 remaining. If you pull out a negative, you switch the signs around. Now looking at this, we have x plus 4 and 5x minus 1, and that is your final answer. If you need to take a second and pause the video or go back, now is a good time to do so. I'm going to work out 2 more problems. Okay, here we have 4x squared minus 5x minus 6. As always, we look at the terms we have and decide if we have a greatest common factor. Unfortunately, between 4x squared minus 5x and minus 6, there's not a factor other than 1 that these three terms share. After that, we determine how many terms we have and what method we want to use. In this case, we have a trinomial because we have 3 terms. Now, this is a trinomial where my a value is not equal to 1. So once again, this is going to be the AC method. So a times c. In this case, we'll have 4 times negative 6. That gets us negative 24. I need to think of 2 numbers that multiply to give me negative 24 and combine to give me negative 5. As you're thinking of those two numbers, I'm going to just share with you what they are. So keep thinking. Think a little bit. I got to think too. So negative 8 and positive 3 will work out for this. AC method has us rewrite this term. So I'm going to write this as a minus 8x plus 3x. And as always, I need to carry down what I'm still working with, 4x squared minus 8x plus 3x minus 6. Now, I have my 4 terms, and I can do factoring by grouping. Grouping my first 2 terms as you see in yellow here, 4x squared minus 8x. These 2 terms I have a 4x in common, and what remains is going to be an x minus 2. Looking at my next 2 terms in blue, what they have in common is a positive 3. What remains is an x minus 2. Now, if you've done enough factoring by grouping, whether it's through the AC method or through the other night's homework, you'll realize that this x minus 2 term repeats itself, and that is a good thing. If we didn't have that term repeat itself, you did something wrong. And what remains is a 4x plus 3. Final answer is circled there in black. Once again, take a second, pause the video, go back, make sure you understand this problem. We have one more problem to get through before the video is up. Last but not least, we have a problem such as number 4. We have a trinomial 6x squared plus 57x plus 72. Now, as you remember, my first thing that I've always looked for, it hasn't happened yet, but I need to check to see if these 3 terms have something in common. In this case, they each have a 3. This is very important, and it's going to make our life a lot easier if we're able to factor out the greatest common factor first. So what remains is going to be a 2x squared plus 19x plus 24. Now looking at that, I factored out that 3, and I'm looking at my other 3 terms. I have a trinomial with my a value not equal to 1. So what I'm going to do is factoring by grouping with the 3 terms, the trinomial left over in parentheses. So I need to look at the AC method. I have 2 times 24. 2 times 24 is 48, and I need to find 2 numbers that multiply to give me 48 and combine to give me 19. Once again, it's positive 48 and positive 19. These 2 numbers are going to be 3 and 16. Split this up as 3x plus 16x. And traveling with the rest of my problem, I have 2x squared plus that plus 24. And I'm going to do factoring by grouping. I have 4 terms, so I'm going to go to factoring by grouping. My first 2 terms, I only have an x in common, and I have a 2x plus 3 left over. My second 2 terms, I end up having a positive 8 in common, and I have 2x plus 3 left over. Once again, that repeat is a very good thing, and you want to start seeing that every time you do factoring by grouping. Now I have 2x plus 3 and x plus 8. Typically, we would be done with this problem right now. However, keep in mind that we did factor out this 3 at the very beginning, and we just can't lose that value. It's got to be in our answer at the end. So now what you see, including that 3 and circled in the black, that is our final answer.